Hey everyone, it's Classic DM, and today's video is going to be an old school review of Pathfinder Second Edition. And we're going to really take a look at the game because it's been 2 weeks now. I've read this thing cover to cover multiple times, been engaged with the community a lot, done some local play sessions here in town, and I want to give you what I think about it. And because I have a big A&D community that's really interested in the old school stuff, I thought what more fun way to do it to give you a review that kind of captures that old school perspective. Now, before we go any further, let's just go ahead and tell you the answer. Because some people, they don't want to wait to the end. They don't want to wait to the end to hear the answer, right? I'm going to give you the answer. First of all, the answer to this thing is that this game is blending the magic of AD&D with some wargaming sensibilities. At the same time, it's an evolution of 3rd edition and 3.5 beyond the 3.75, even further beyond what we have in 5th edition coming out of Wizards of the Coast. And it puts a tremendous amount of player choice in your hands as a player. The DM has a lot of very particular rules that has the kind of wargaming flair to it, but you're not controlling massive armies and platoons and things like that. You're just controlling one particular character. The balance is very tight. It's much more compressed than in the previous versions of the game, and a lot of the enemies are much more powerful than they were before, so it's very challenging. So that AD&D vibe with a little bit of wargaming, an evolution of what this game needs to be for the last 40 years, and tons of player choice in a modern world where people like to have their own creativity, and the challenge level going up to a level that's going to really appeal to a lot of old schoolers. So that's the answer right off the bat. Now, how do we get to that answer, right? So we're going to cover these following things here. We're going to talk obviously about the core rule book. We're going to talk about the sections of the book that I find to be very compelling and very interesting. I'm not going to read you the book. I'm just going to pick and glean out the sections I think are really surprising and new and refreshing that you might find refreshing and new if you're an old school AD&D 1st edition, 2nd edition player. If you're a 3rd edition player, most of the stuff is going to be basic to you. You can go read online and read the SRD and you'll go, oh, that's a little different. But this is really kind of tailored towards people who haven't played a lot, haven't got a chance to play the game in a long time. So my angle is really tailoring towards an older school gamer that really wants to see what the magic behind the game is. So we're going to talk about the main rulebook itself. Obviously, we're going to talk about the bestiary. Now, I've been very bad. I've been calling it bestiary. There is no A, it's an E. We're going to talk about the bestiary. There's one good major concept in this bestiary that is good enough to change the whole theme of RPG playing around the world forever. You're definitely going to be talking about that with me today. Another thing we're going to talk about is the character sheet pack that came out that I got a copy of. We're also going to talk about all the different individual class-centric character sheets that you can get. And we'll also talk about the pre-generated characters very, very briefly, which will help guide you when you're learning the game. They helped me tremendously see how players who are very familiar with Pathfinder, how they made their decisions when they got ready to create their character. In addition to that, we're going to talk about ways you can right now get some good answers to questions that you're going to have along the way as you try to make that player-centric choice character I talked about, right? Also, we're going to talk about the GM screen super briefly because it's freaking amazing, and it's a much better than the top secret one, I will tell you that. I'm not going to reveal it just yet, but we are going to talk about this. This is beautiful, fantastic completion right here. Really well done. And of course, Jason's Fall Plague Stones, very neat. A lot of cool things about that. I want to talk about that. And the reason why I'm talking about all these things, this is not some commission review. I'm doing this because I love this game, is that that's what you can get your hands on right now. So if you're going to get your hands on everything, we are going to talk about print versus PDF and all that kind of details too. So that's our basic introduction. That's why I think the game is fantastic. Let's go ahead and get into some of the dirty details. Now, people who've been hanging around my channel for a while, they probably recognize some of this stuff. This is where I grew up, 13 years old, 1978. If you've ever been to this tower, or you ever got together with your party and sat at one of the tables in this inn, or if you said to yourself, hey, we got some characters getting a little higher level, let's go see what we can do, and can we defeat these nasty hill giants, or have you watched any of my previous videos where you go down the glacier with the frost giant Jarl? This is the game that started it for me. I'm a video game designer, but I got my start here. Before this, I was playing Squad Leader and Panzer Leader and Waterloo and a bunch of Avalon Hill box games. So the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons player, or the 2nd edition player, that's where all that stuff got to start for me. And this is where this type of tabletop role-playing really got kicked off. I mean, there was a ton of other games that were done, and some of them just fell on the floor like this. I mean, this is not going to be a show-off session of my collection, but you know, what kind of a game can you play where you and your friends with your FDR6, if you know what that means, a fast draw revolver, can walk down Main Street and blow each other up with scatter guns? I mean, doesn't that sound awesome? I mean, look at this map. It's awesome. This is almost as good as the city-state of the Invincible Overlord. So, I mean, these kind of games done by TSR, and also done by other studios as well, such as Game Designer Workshop, they really kicked off wargaming, and they really kicked off role-playing games, and they bound these two elements together. So these games have a lot of nostalgia for people that are my age, around my age. I'm 53, some people a little younger, that's fine too. You played old games like this, and that's really old, right? This was an espionage game done right at the height of D&D, really picked up. It had jujitsu, melee combat, it had, firearm combat, it's being James Bond and spies and all kinds of cool stuff in that. You can learn to speak a little bit of German, Sprechen halt Essel, codename Pisces. This is like being a James Bond movie come alive. Great game, really, really good, fantastic. There is spirit of this in the new edition of Pathfinder as well. Now, like I said, I promised earlier, the DM screens aren't quite as good back then as they are now, and now we have beautiful full color printed ones with a lot of useful information. This is like a yellowed war game from the 70s. This is what we used to use when we were kids. So you're 13 years old, you're doing okay in geometry class, and you're having to read through all these charts that are like offset print. It's crazy. The stuff you have at your disposal now, this is almost unreadable. The stuff you have at your disposal today is just so much cooler, so much cooler. And also, you've heard me mention it, and I don't do any videos on it, but I really, really love Traveler. It's a fantastic game. This game is hard. You do not run down a hallway with your laser blaster in your hand and blow up 10 guys. You can die in character creation in this game. So when you talk about old school stuff, war games or whatever, I'll try not to shake the table too much. Traveler is an amazing old school game to play. And if you want to take a step back in time, there's a great Traveler Facebook group. Now, why would I mention all these other games? I'm not trying to dog and pony show these things, but there's elements to the way these role-playing games all evolved. With Game Designer Workshop doing this very hardcore, gritty science fiction game where you could die very easily, while TSR was trying to get their handle on, hey, what are we going to do to take this original Dungeons and Dragons and turn it into something amazing? So we're going to go all over that kind of detail right now. So let's get this player panel open. And you know what we're going to do? I tell you, let's just go ahead and we're going to go ahead and turn this little bad boy on here so you can. So the game now is really balanced around four-person group, four-person party. You fighting the one enemy, two enemies, three enemies. The challenge rating is going to be up to you. And I'll tell you right now, it gets a straight 18 rating for me if you know what I really think about it. 666 all the way. So one of the first things that you're going to find about this game that's really, really different. Let's take a look on the right-hand side here real quick. We're going to move this camera out of the way a little bit. Actually, you know what? I'm going to leave this open so I can write on it. Let's go ahead and take a look on the right-hand side. In the core rulebook, one of the things you're going to find right off the bat is this whole chapter 1, the introduction. Now, in a lot of role-playing games, you have an introduction that says, what is a role-playing game? And all this kind of junk. And you've seen it before a million times. But they do a really, really good job, just like I said on my day 1 review, of introducing you to the game. They introduce you to the mechanics. They give you an example. They give you an idea of how some of the complex things are going to work out later. They're very, very good at explaining the formula. They are very good at selling the ideas with the full page spread of all the ancestries and the heritages and the classes. And before you walk away at the end of that first chapter, you kind of know everything you're going to need to know about this game. You just don't know exactly how it's going to work. So you end up with this really cool idea in your head that sounds like freaking totally awesomeness, right? You're like, oh, this is really cool, and be a big kid again, right? So that's your big dream. You've read this introductory chapter, and there's really nothing in there that's that different. There's a little subtle little thing off over here, and a little subtle thing off over here. It's a little bit different, and what's this proficiency bonus thing, and what's the ancestry really mean, and how does this actually work? It's still D20, right? So the gamer in you that's been playing these games you have these like 5 burning questions. What happened to the monk, and where's my gunslinger, and all that kind of stuff, right? But you're so excited because, oh man, cool, another version of D&D coming to play. I can't wait to dig in the details. So the introduction chapter is fantastic. Then when you start getting into the ancestry and background, I did a video just on ancestry and backgrounds. You should check it out. I try to explain it the best I can. We're not really talking about races anymore, right? And it's not because we're doing some kind of like politically correct movement where everyone's all happy, joy, and afraid to use the word race. There's nothing wrong with using the word race. Now, in the modern world, we don't talk about race to each other anymore because sometimes it has these negative connotations, but they're called ancestry and heritages. I did a whole video on that. That's a really, really neat thing to do. The thing about that I really like is, so let's just say you have these different, races or character, heritages, and ancestries, no matter how big or no matter how small or how funny the ears are, and whatever you like them or not. What does this mean? So the game D&D always had these types of different characters of different sizes and different faces and different haircuts and everything else. What you have now is little subsets of these. So you have like human, and you're going to have half orc and half elf, and underneath that, and you're going to have elf, and only different kinds of elves. We don't have a dwarf in here. We need a cool dwarf. I love dwarfs. My favorite dwarfs of all time was Big Block Chevy, my slayer from Warhammer Online. So we got a big dwarf here, right? More chicken scratch. This is a little kid. It's probably a gnome. Actually, there's two little kids. Need a little. Put a halfling peeking from the back here. So each one of these has these like sub races. If you ever played any of the D&D games that has like sun elves and moon elves and drow, that's going to look very familiar to you. But what you're going to find is very different is like, hey, guess what? Room for expansion. So you can tell right away Paizo's a publishing company, and they're going to always publish beautiful, colorful books, and they're going to give you more and more and more and more. So what does that mean? That means your cool big dream is just going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and you're going to wish you won the lottery so you can buy all the books as soon as possible. But if you can't do that, if you can't get all those books, you dream of collecting them all and buying them all, these guys are very, very cool about always releasing electronic versions of stuff. They don't cost that much. So you can always get the PDF, right? So the ancestry and the heritage thing, you take all the idea of races that were there in the game forever, and you describe and throw in a few new things like goblins and all this kind of, where's a goblin at? This guy back here the goblin? No, this guy here. He could be the goblin. Give him a big nose and a little dagger that doesn't hurt anyone. So, and all these little sub sets of these races, which are ancestries and heritages. And then you have things like a background, like a farmhand and all that. And all those things, what is that really doing? It's allowing you, like you may see in one of my AD&D videos, to come up with an idea. You come up with the idea for the burly dwarf that's got the mohawk and the flaming red hair, who talks in a Scottish accent and dual wields hammers and says, "Give me death," as he pile drives the crap out of everything, wears no armor. That's what he wants to do. He wants to be just like a Slayer in Warhammer Online. That's what your dream is, and you want to call him Grugnak or something like that sounds terrible, or name after your favorite beer, you can do that too. If you want to make some kind of little goblin street urchin guy that thieves and sidesteps and rolls and gets away from every time a giant takes a swing at you, he just can't get his hands on you, and you move really, really quickly, you can do that. So any type of character idea, the whole character creation system is really about theme and putting the power of the theme into your hands. Now, the only thing about that whole system that's a little tricky, and I'm going to warn you about it, I'm not going to be all glad-handing here, I'm going to be absolutely brutally honest, it's 2 weeks here, is that despite the fact that people are going to call it A, B, C, that's not really what it is personally. There's a little bit more subsets happening in between the A part before you get to B and C. Now, A stands for ancestry, B stands for background, which is only 2 pages, and C stands for class. Now, everyone already understands a class, and usually a lot of times you already start thinking about the class as the first stopping off point. So the ancestry and the class, so it's really kind of like AC/DC, right? It has to be back in black, or for those about to rock. So you really have kind of like race plus class plus hero idea, not divided by. So hero, this is where you start. And then you have this ancillary element like, yeah, I was once a guard and I was protecting the city, but then I defected and ran off somewhere. Or I was a farmhand and I'm burly and I know a lot about farming and agriculture. You don't really need these things, but the fact that they're there, they give you incentives to your ability scores because that whole system's been reinvented as well. So as I said at the very beginning, the evolution of the game, they've realized that people want to create individual heroes that start off with a neat idea, and the system allows them to build it, not roll a bunch of dice and hope you have enough dexterity to be an illusionist like Obscura, okay? So that's one thing that's great about the ancestry and the background section. Now, when you get into classes, the class section, I would encourage you, say you've got a copy of the book already and you're still learning, and you're watching this review just to see what the devil I got to say about it at 2 weeks. The class section is not something to jump on right away unless you personally just can't wait to start making that hero. So for a guy like me, I'm not as concerned with making my amazing rapier dual wielding crit threat weapon master key monk machine that I used in 3.5 that was destroying everyone on the whole planet. He needs to have sunglasses, right? You can put a little beard on him. There you go. This is Chicken Scratch Man. WTF sketches for the win. What the? So, if you want to rebuild something that you did before and you're trying to emulate the past, you might be a little bit disappointed when you find out you can't do exactly the way you had it before. But then you're going to be very happy when you find out there's all these extra things you can do that are quite powerful synergies. So if you're a class tinkering, metagaming, power gamer type of guy, and you started off thinking that you're going to rebuild your weapon master key monk fighter destruction machine with 10 to 20 crit threat range with dual wielding rapiers, you may not get that exactly. You may be, oh man, I can't build my cool class from Pathfinder 1, or I can't build my cool class from D&D third edition, what you will find is like, wait a minute, I can take this feat at 7 and this feat at 15, and by the time I get all the way to this journey, this guy doesn't quite exactly look as cool as your weapon master. He looks 5 times cooler. And now he's a complete walking wave of destruction. He can destroy anything he wants to at will. The sword gets bigger, the muscles get bigger, and he's a much more powerful character. And it's also, he's able to be killed very quickly if you make a bad decision. So you get a big cheesy grin by the time you develop that character. And because the threat that it takes for you to go all the way through the world from the beginning, go through all these adventures and everything you're going to try to do is very, 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 very hard. It's not so hard, it's frustrating, but the reason why it's not frustrating is because you're doing it with your friends. So the 4-person construct of getting the party together with very dynamic and diverse synergies, and even you're playing the same exact class together. Okay, it's not a trinity from an MMO. It's not DPS, healer, and tank anymore. You can do all kinds of mix and matching. So that individual character creation, don't let your initial frowny point turn you off, because a lot of people are going to walk in this game saying, it's second edition, how come I can't do this? Well, there's no illusionist, there's no assassin. Don't worry about that. What you're going to find in the end is something that you accidentally created. It's like learning how to cook and realizing that making a Thai curry is pretty fun, but then you discover kaffir lime leaves and everything changes, right? So the class system is fantastic. Get in there and dink around with it if you can. What I will warn you about something. The ability scores, the way they're starting off now, okay, we're going to put those up right here. So ability scores, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They all start off at 10. And when you first look at it, it's going to be hard. You're going to be like, I got to get an Android app to figure out how to do this because I get +2, then I'm getting +1, I get a -1 and +2, and then I get +2 again and a +2 again. And I'm not sure, why is wisdom so important? I don't get it. And you know, your strength and your dexterity and constitution are kind of physical up here, and you got like intelligence and wisdom and charisma down here at the bottom. So don't get too bogged down with this in initial phases. Read through all the feats, read through the class feats, read through the things you get as bonuses for the different ancestries, and start trying to mumble through this with a character sheet. I highly encourage you to grab a copy of the PDFs they have. Print up a bunch of cheap black and white PDFs and start trying to build a character by hand. Use some of the online resources. They're not that great right now. Use the Android app if you have to kind of double check your work. That's what I had to do. One thing I highly recommend that you do, if you're going to dive into classes, and most people, if you start looking on the web right now, it's like, what's a good monk build? You know, you've always got this kind of stuff going on, is go ahead and get a copy of these babies, right? Get a free copy. You don't have to print them. You can get a free copy of the level 1 or level 5 versions of the iconic heroes from the whole franchise, right? And you can look at these things. And I made a video where we reverse engineered the level 1 version of Valeros. Go check that out. And I had to do that to teach myself, because there was the way you build the character and the ability scores is different. You're getting bonuses as you make those A, B, C choices, and you feel like, did I miss out on one? Or does this one get this? And what skill is this? And this is a skill underneath this? And there's some things that are going to muddy the water for you. Don't let that muddy the water for you. Just jump in and try and do it, and then talk to someone and say, hey guys, you know, I'm building a fighter like Valeris, but I really wanted to dual wield, and I don't really want to use a tower shield with a shield boss on it, and I also kind of wanted to use a longbow. Here's my character idea I came up with. Do you think this is possible? I was thinking about taking these skills. Engage with your community, because everyone else is learning this at the same time as you, and you'd be surprised. In fact, I'm just going to pimp the Facebook community I'm a member of. It's the Pathfinder fan community. What's the darn name of it again? Now I can't remember off the top of my head. It's the fan-club group. It's really good. It's got a dash under the fan part. So, you know, you can get a copy of the character sheets for free online. Obviously, there's a character sheet in the, you can buy these here, but they're very class-centric. Like there's one for every single class in the game that has particular fields that you can fill out just for them. As you can see, this is pre-filled out here for the cleric. That's very useful. Definitely print it. Don't write on these, because you may lose the fact that it has all this free stuff in the beginning. So if you're a person looking for building that perfect class, you're going to probably be able to do that quite easily, but you're going to get bogged down in this initial phase of flipping back and forth through the book. And don't let that frustrate you too much. Ask questions and try to get help from people that have done it a couple times. One thing I noticed about this community, which is quite smart, the first edition of Pathfinder 1 was like, you know, was like 3.75, okay? So you remember this bad boy came out. So If you ever played third edition, this was all the skills and the base attack bonus and all the complexity got added. Before that, it was AC -10 to AC 10 and nothing in between, no stat growth. You know, your level made the difference. Your level and your magic +5 Vorpal sword, right? And of course, we know later on they kind of went down this route, which I'm not personally a big fan of, but hey, they were experimenting. And when they did this and left off, that's when these guys came in. And just you can tell from this first book, its size, the first edition of Pathfinder, which has been around for 10 years, a decade, is complex, and they've added so many books. There's NPC codexes, there's advanced player guides, there's advanced class guides, there's ultimate gear guides, there's a huge, massive, whole unique world, the Inner Sea. There is so much printed content, you can't get it all. I was fortunate enough to get a copy of the Humble Bundle that came out earlier this year. Thank goodness for that. I must have like 700 PDFs now to make up with the fact that I couldn't buy all the books. I didn't have enough money. So why am I bringing these books out? Well, a lot of people may be watching the review this far, maybe in this camp, and there's nothing wrong with that. I hope you're going to pick up a few details. Don't just listen to someone says, it's 5th edition with X, or it's not as good as B. There's things in this version of the game, the evolution of D&D, that's very different, much more challenging than you've ever found before. And there is some more complexity, but the complexity is much more rewarding than you may have seen previously. Now, if you're someone watching my review to see if I remember all the details from the playtest, you're trying to catch me on brownie points and mark off 10 DKP every time I screw up, more power to you, because I didn't play in the playtest. I bought it. I did local testing by myself, so I'm not sure what it's like to run a campaign in the playtest. So I can't say, well, this was in the playtest, this is in P2E. So I'm not that kind of a guy, right? I'm the kind of guy who just absorbs and learns and gleans and try to latch on to particular details and share those with people. So if you see things in the playtest that are different, share those with your community. But you don't need to know any of that. You could have missed the playtest, right? You could have never played 5th edition because it wasn't your thing. You may have never played the first version of Pathfinder because it's different. You may have heard of Dungeons & Dragons, but you never played a controller or a guardian fighter. And you know, this was pretty cool, but you weren't playing it when this came out. You don't have to have a previous ancestry in any of those games to enjoy playing Pathfinder. And I'm just going to appeal to my wargaming buddies here, so bear with me for 2 minutes while I hype them on this. If you're a bolt action player, or especially if you're a Hail Caesar player, or you're a Black Powder player, there's a level of complexity to war games that wargamers love. You have historical references, you have historical aspects, you have the way the miniatures are even built and put together from Warlord games and what they look like, and how you actually assemble your armies and your points. If you're a Warhammer 40K player or Warhammer Fantasy player, you know what that's like. If you can handle a war game, if you can handle Warhammer 40K, when you get into Pathfinder 2E, the main thing that really happens is everything tailors down to playing like one heroic character. So all the complexity is kind of still there for all the situations where you're running past someone with an attack of opportunity, or you got a certain type of condition on you, or this type of line of sight check. All that context you've learned previously with large groups of armies, with huge companies, or even battalions or divisions. If you're a 1 to 72 scale player, believe me, I've done that too. There is stuff in Pathfinder 2 that I think you will find compelling. Now, it's not as bad as Advanced Squad Leader. That's probably one of the most complex war games that has ever been created. Let me just reach down here and pull some of the stuff that fell down. Bear with me a second. It might sound funny as I stretch. So let's go through the rest of the book here real quickly. So we talked about the classes, the skills section. Oh yes, this is definitely worth talking about. So there is a lot of skills, and it's going to be very confusing. It's a chapter that I'm not focusing on right now. The class chapter, you're probably going to focus on classes. So once you focus on classes, you're going to need to learn everything there is about skills. Now, the best way to really learn about skills is to play a character, start at day 1, and start doing the progression. And along the way, every time you level up, then go back and make the decision. Make the interesting, exciting decision of what's on the menu and what can you order to eat now at the next course of your meal. So you eat at level 1, level 2, level 3. Every time you're given a choice, and they spell it out for you very, very well in the first chapter introduction. When you level up, what do you get to do? Go back and then teach yourself that kind of stuff. Now, if you're a power gamer, you're going to have a joy planning your character all to level 20, but it might take you 5 years to get there. So it may take you less than that, depends how much you play. So that's something you might want to consider. Is the skills chapter is very robust. The game is a DC-oriented game, okay, which is a difficulty class, which basically means the number to beat on a D20. And that's been around since 3rd edition. It's not that hard to deal with. They have really great rules that break down tasks for things like this is hard, this is really hard, etc. Don't worry about that too much, but you do need to understand that everything you can do in the game is probably going to be a check. And check means like you need to beat this number. So in order to do A, like identify an ancient tomb, read a strange tome, make a jump across a pit, influence some guard that you should be able to let behind the gates because you know the guy's sister. Maybe something where it's like I'm trying to cast a spell against something that has a certain level of immunity or high resistance rate, or even I'm just casting a level 1 spell just trying to hit something, right? All these different types of things essentially are a difficulty class, which means roll your d20, beat the number. In some situations, the DM will tell you the number to beat. In some situations, they'll tell you whether you beat it, and you'll figure it out for yourself from reverse engineering. So the next thing we should go about then is the feat section. So this is another thing closely tied into your class. So if you're building a hero and you're going to do all the heritage stuff and you're going to do all the ancestry stuff, which is all about character creation, and then you're going to have these feats and all these skills to pick, this is all wound up in the whole what is my hero going to be and what's their journey. So if you are just taking a look at the game and you're worried about that and you say, oh my god, there's way too many numbers in the phone book, the same thing kind of holds true with spells, right? This is another thing. Don't try to memorize the damn phone book. I hate to say it that way, but a lot of people kind of feel that way. Unless you're going to be a GM, right? You don't need to memorize everything in the bestiary. You don't need to memorize all the spells. Pick one class, try building the class, play the class for a little bit, then you start making the hard choices. You may play the cleric one way for 2 or 3 months and then go jump into another group with a bunch of other players and realize from another cleric you're playing with, maybe playing that class in a way that you've never thought of before. Or you might see a video online that reveals about some really cool way to use a two-handed weapon you've never thought of before. So take a look at the classes, the feats, the skills, the spells, and realize that, like I said in the very beginning, this is all about player choice, right? So don't try to memorize the phone book. You're going to get yourself demotivated unless you just love to read books and sit down all day long and have a fantastic imagination if you try to memorize the whole rule book. Just realize that along the way, as you're building your character and you start leveling up, you're going to have these choices you're going to have to make all along the way. So as you're making those choices, you will slowly learn. It's like learning how to play the electric guitar. You don't pick it up and start jamming like George Lynch in the first 5 minutes. So know that it's there. There's pictures of every chord ever created on the planet. There's pictures of every musical note ever done on the planet. Over time, you'll get good at understanding where they go and how the things progress, et cetera, et cetera. So don't get too bogged down with that. But I will tell you this, there's a lot of choice here. And there's a lot of subtle intricacies of one class getting something and another class getting it too. There's not as much pigeonholing going on. So if you played first edition, very pigeonholed, right? You just get to do what's in there. In third edition, you got penalized for how many points you could put into different types of things outside your normal class area. So in Pathfinder Second Edition, I would say you have a lot more flexibility to cross-pollinate some ideas into a new character idea that you have never done before. Well, that's pretty obvious because of the ability to pick up different feats and different skills. So that's one thing that's very, very different. There's another chapter in the game which is all about equipment. It's definitely one to take a look at. The way that they balanced out the damage numbers and how the stuff is happening in the equipment, the armor. You know, armor is not this big number anymore. You're having armor and shield. You're getting most of your armor starting off at like number 10, and you're getting an armor bonus like 2 or 3, and then you're getting maybe a dexterity modifier. The armor class numbers are much more compressed. So, you know, you're going to start off with like 10, then plus 2, then plus maybe a 4, and you'll be running around with 16 to 18 armor class, or maybe 19. In fact, we could pull out one of the characters here and talk about that really briefly. Let's just take a look at, let's pick 2 characters we haven't been given any love to, right? Who have we not been given any love to? Amiri gets way too much love. Here's Ezra in level 1. And let's take a look at, actually, let's do a champion. Sela's cool looking. Where's her level 5 version? Maybe I don't have a level 5 version. Well, here's Ezra level 5, so let's save you the hassle of waiting me fumbling through these things. So let's just look at the growth here from level 1 to level 5. That's not the max level is 20, right? So his intelligence is 19 at level 5. His intelligence at level 1 is 18. So he didn't have a tremendous amount of growth. He's still in the +4 modifier range. Remember, the modifier numbers are all based on brackets of 2 digits each. Now let's look at his hit points. He's 53 hit points at level 5. Now, tell me this. What's the maximum hit points a magic user could have at level 10 in D&D? Maybe 40 if you rolled all 4s. And if you had a combo bonus, If you had 18 Constitution Magic user, you're in the wrong club, right? So the hit point numbers are larger. Now the armor class numbers, though, are smaller. His armor class is only 20, armor class is only 15. If you played Neverwinter Nights or played 3.5 and 3.0, you know the armor class numbers and the base attack bonus numbers got really, really big. But tailoring this conversation back down to the AD&D community, it's not, you know, AC 10 to negative 10 stuck forever. There is armor class growth. There is statistical growth, but it's not in huge leaps and bounds. But there's a decent amount of hit point growth. So the hit point growth, this is a factor of 3, right? In 5 levels, you're getting 1.5, 1.5, 1.5. So by the time you get to level 20, his hit points, what would they be? Maybe 200? I'm not sure. Someone can probably run that for us and tell us what the answer is. It'd be neat to see in the comments, what do you think when a level 20 cleric like Kira or Kyra, however you say it, her max hit points would be. She's level 5, she's got 48 hit points. Did you just catch the difference there? What did our hit points for Ezran have at level 5? He has more hit points than her. Is it unheard of? He's a wizard. This is a magic user. This is a cleric. You know, the background is a human. He's a human. They're the same ancestry. They have the same movement rate, right? He's a background of a merchant. She's an acolyte. That doesn't have any impact on this kind of stuff. But where she put her constitution modifier makes a difference. He's got a +3 constitution modifier. So this person wanted to be tankier. He wanted to have more hit points. But hit points 48, hit points 53, that's a dice roll. That's a dagger stab away, okay? That's a rapier stab to the gut away. So the character power levels are not as ridiculously apart like they were in AD&D and in Second Edition as well. All right, let's try to speed things up here a little bit without talking too fast. Spells. Wow, there's a lot of spells, and a lot of spells have tremendously changed. And they've changed in terms of blast radiuses. I did a series of videos on that for Fireball. Things that used to be really, really big now are much smaller and more compressed. That means the tactical layout of where everyone's standing and who's being hit by the template is going to make a lot of difference over what was happening before. So be sure and read the spells and understand that the mechanics of touching things and ranging and casting spells to hit things, all that is very different. But the same old classic names are still there like they've always been. In fact, let's just go jump ahead to one of the spells here real quick, right? When you go to the spell section, one of the first things they're going to do is they're going to break them down into different traditions and magical schools, right? So you're going to have, like, I think it's arcane, and then there's primal, and there's divine, and there's occult. So there's 4 basic magic schools. It's like a PlayStation controller, right? What else we got for controller? Let's just do this like this, right? So you got these 4 primary magic schools, and if you're playing like a sorcerer or something like that, you're going to be like focused towards one with a little bit of the other. These schools are more like thematic schools of casting. It's no longer just illusionist spells, cleric spells, druid only spells. What else did you have in the first edition of D&D? Paladin and Ranger kind of got some cleric spells, magic user spells. That was pretty much it. So now you have these thematic versions of occult, divine, primal, and arcane, and from those you're mixing, matching, and pulling spells out and doing what you want to do. Now classes do have themes. If you're going to play, there's these sub-classes and archetypes and things like that you can do. So when you're creating that character with that particular theme, you'll get choices as to which type of school you're going to focus on by creating kind of like a subclass. And you'd be like, well, I'm an occult, casting, arcane, nuker character. That's my kind of blend because I want him to be like this and look like that and wear these crazy robes and be very evil looking and be chaotic neutral. And you can do that. You're not limited by being, you can only be the guy with the wizard hat that has crap hit points and runs around with a robe and holds a kitten in his hand and goes yay from time to time with a wand. It's not like that anymore. It's no longer Dumbledore, okay? Now you can be this walking wave of destruction and have all kinds of cool character and wear all kinds of neat gear and do this specialized class design that you want to do. And so that's where we're going to see what? A lot of people, right? A lot of people are going to create a lot of cool builds. And this is a massively multiplayer game, but builds and character layouts, if you're into that kind of stuff and you're coming from computer game world, you're going to find there's so many character options and build options, almost like Diablo 3, that you're going to find something that's really intriguing, interesting, but you don't have to do that to be effective. The builds are personality choices. Sure, some metagamer player might say, well, if you do this and do this, you can just paralyze something in place and nuke it down with Ice Storm and then freeze it. You know, there may be things like that, like little one-shot, two-shot wonders that people are coming up with. But those things aren't going to work all the time. They're only going to work in certain situations. So don't be turned off if you find a lot of people heavily focusing on the conversation around, I'm trying to build a monk that only does this, and I can't do this in this crane stance, but I want to do it this way. How can I have this most powerful build ever? So that is always going to be there in every type of game. And so we're going to have a lot of video game players, and I design games for these people. They're going to be focusing on builds. So if you're coming from the old school world, don't let that intimidate you. Take that word build and turn it into the word option, because how good, here's the quote from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Real skill comes without effort. I think Lee Mubai said that with the Green Destiny sword when he's trying to get it back, right? So this game is about this. If you're a good tactical player and know how to put your character together, you won't make a bad character. Like in Elder Scrolls Online, you can make a really bad, ineffective character in Elder Scrolls Online if you don't know what you're doing. So how well you play, how well you think on the battlefield, the choices you make are going to be effective. No one's going to be way over here in the damage pool and you're going to be way over here. It's your personality, your heroism is going to come alive. So the skill is going to come from you making decisions of how you play the character. That's where the rewarding factor is going to come from, not from some build that someone had on the internet. Now this audience is still going to be entertained. You're still going to find people that are very, very interested in mechanics, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's very cool. I do that too. I'm a big PvP player. I want to have certain builds. I always put my own twist on it, but they're always going to be builds too. If you see a build that's like that, take that build and put your own opinion and option on it and make it different so you can create that character that has a different look than everyone else, that does something no one else has ever done before, right? And then of course you can always have a husky as a familiar too, right? So this is some things about that system that is very different with the 4 different schools of spells, like theories. I forgot what the proper name for them is. So when you start building a character, don't be overwhelmed with all the choices you're going to have. It's like looking at some university catalog when you don't know what kind of degree program you want to take. You're like, why should I be studying Mesoamerican artifacts and grave goods? I just want to be a forensic anthropologist and dig up bones at crime scenes. Why do grave goods in Mesoamerican history mean anything to me? Well, there's some reasons for that. There's cultural reasons for that. There's also identification of bones and osteology you're going to learn along the way. So look at the college course class library book, right? And you don't know what kind of degree you're going to get. So approach Pathfinder 2e is like that freshman year in college, you're trying to figure out what your degree is going to be. A lot of people started life off thinking they're going to be an astronaut, and now they're an award-winning author. So, you know, it's your life, it's your dream. You're going to evolve on the way. Some people turned out to be an attorney or something, right? You're making a bunch of money ripping people off. Isn't that what attorneys do all the time? Someone else is now in sales and making a ton of money and making commissions. Someone else is an Air Force pilot flying across the air, blowing stuff up. Someone else is a commander or a PMP, project managing professional, or you're a spreadsheet master, you know, or you're a teacher, whatever you are, but you started over here. You started over here thinking something else was cool. Along the way, your cool meandering path in life went like this. And maybe it didn't turn out exactly the way you want it to be, but guess what you get to do in Pathfinder 2e? You can be whatever you want to be. And you can get to that route a lot quicker. You can skip all this crap, all the bills and all the utility bills and all that kind of stuff, and get the adventure in a 4-hour gaming session with your friends and go right to being cool and being a hero. That's the psychological hook of Pathfinder 2e that I think is brilliant. Tony Robbins, you ain't got shit on me. All right, so let's go on to the next section here, right? Let's go back to the original page here and try to get us back on topic. And we've got other books to look at too, right? So chapter 8 is the Age of Lost Omens. So this is something for me I'm at a massive disadvantage of, because I know World of Greyhawk like the back of my hand. I know Forgotten Realms pretty good, but there is a massive world behind the scenes that's being carried over from Pathfinder 1. It is huge, and if you try to dig into trying to figure out what this massive world is all about right now, you're going to be like, oh my God, where do I fit in this huge, massive universe with all these continents and these races? And if you watch one of the podcasts or watch Jason Bullman run one of his episodes and starts talking about how you're on the back of a cavern and you're on this ferry and you're going to this town of X and you're trying to do something, and you talk to this guard of Y, and you've heard about the battles between the cities of E and D and C, you're going to be like, what is he talking about, dude? Well, that is all lore, and you don't need to understand all that lore to get into the game. You can make your own lore. But the good thing is there is a tremendous amount of previously developed content that's going to be available for you. Now, they just released a free conversion thing on the Paizo blog that lets you convert stuff from the first edition of Pathfinder to the second edition. It's really kind of a guide. The whole Lost Omens era is well described in the core rulebook. Take a look at it, read through it, adopt it if you want to. A lot of stuff's going to be foreign to you. Like, for example, let's say you were a D&D player and that's all you've ever played, and you've read all all the books and all the novels, and you're playing 5th edition, some of the same deities are in this game that have been there since the very beginning, with not that many different ones have been added. But when you look at Pathfinder, it made an immediate leap off the page to differentiate itself. They came out of the gate saying, listen, we're not doing this in Forgotten Realms. We're not doing this. This is all owned by Wizards of the Coast. We're going to make our own world called Golarion. So you may find that if you jump into Pathfinder and you don't understand Golarion and the Inner Sea and all this kind of stuff, like me, okay, don't let that be like, I don't really know anything about Magic the Gathering. There's too many cards. I don't want to figure it out. Learn how to play the game and then just go play it. So there's a tremendous world at your fingertips. If the game was just the world in of itself, it would be enough. So that's really, really crazy. So you have this huge, massive 10 years of content, of published content at your disposal for this world that's always been built up. You can take an older PDF of one of their previous adventure paths and convert it over to second edition and try playing it out. Now, all the stats and the monsters and numbers, they're all going to change. That's the hard part for the GM to figure out, the game master. But the storyline and the narrative and the adventure and what happens along the way and the drama, that stuff will be timeless. You'll be able to tap into all those resources and apply that to your own game. You don't have to wait around for them to release a bunch of new adventures. So there's some other things in the book as well that's really great. I want to say it's fantastically done, really well. I hate to use adverbs, but I'm going to do it. They have a really strong chapter on playing the game and then game mastering. So chapters 9 and 10 that you see here on the right-hand side, and then there's beyond that we have a crafting and treasure section. But 9 and 10, for a guy like me who's trying to learn the game and learn the mechanics, I'm skipping over classes and skills and feats because I'm not building a character yet. I want to know how the combat works. I want to know how the template targeting works. And we've done a few videos that reveal that. How does Ray Shield work? How does Shield Block work? That's the chapter you want to jump into. If you're going to be a game master and you're going to build your own world, I would suggest you understand the basic classes, understand the heritages and the ancestries and the backgrounds, and go, oh, those are cool, those are neat, this is how gnomes are, this is how dwarves are, this is really cool, this is how you be a half-orc. Get a handle on that. Skip over all the skills and the feats and the spells and jump right to the world mythology. So, I'm going to do my campaign in their world. I want to play one of their adventures. I want to play the Plaguestone adventure where the characters first meet for the first time and maybe learn a little bit about just that little region, right? That has good descriptions of all that kind of stuff and say, hey, but now, I want to learn how to game master the game. I want to know how the combat works. How do I know when to do a check? How do I know whether dexterity is used in a ranged attack or not? How does melee attacks work with finesse weapons like it used to be versus how it is now? Learn those kind of mechanics. So the game master, if you're going to play the game and get to the game, I would say the introductory chapter, learn about the ABCs, gloss over the C section, gloss over the feats, gloss over the skills, because these are just numbers in the phone book, right? They're just places you can order a pizza, okay? And jump right to the world, right? And then jump right to playing the game. Because that's what you need to know, because this is what you want to do. You want to play the game. And then you can read into GM, how to game master the game. Read these 2 chapters, read this chapter here, understand that this is a resource at your disposal to go figure out at a later date when you actually build a character. Now, if you want to be a good GM, you obviously need to be really well versed at all this. But if you want to go play a game with someone else, then you're just going to focus on this. So the first 3 or 4 chapters are going to be for you building your character, building your character. You don't care about the world, maybe. You don't want to have to GM the world. You hope your GM knows this. So as you can tell right off the bat, what do you start happening with this book, right? Which is very well organized. So we're going to draw a little cool picture of the book, even though we got a video picture over here to the right. So here's a cool book, right? So at the beginning of the book, right, this first chapters, this is for the player. And you're going to pick and choose sections from here for spells and feats. You're going to refer to these middle sections as you build your individual heroic character, whatever he's going to be, right? So you're building this cool character. You got this idea and you got this dream in mind. Whatever it is, here's Wognor, the magnificent monk from Indonesia or something with his big pantaloon pants on, right? So you got Wognor, you're going to build the bow staff, face-smashing dude from Indonesia, the MMA fighter, right? And you're going to really need to understand this first few chapters and pick and choose out those feats, those skills you want. Like pick out from the menu. It's ordering something from the menu. You don't need to know how it's made. You don't need to know the mechanics too much. Don't overemphasize on that. Pick out the spells that are going to be cool. Focus on building that one character. Chapter 1, your first monk, right? Become good at doing that and then go play the monk. and along the way realize like, wow, this other guy playing the fighter, he's doing this really cool charge move. How does that work? Do I get something like that? What do I do for an attack of opportunity? Start paying attention to what the other characters in your party are doing, the things that they're doing. When they're doing all these abilities and rushing through combat and attacking things really quickly, you're like, wow, I can move really quickly, but in combat that doesn't really help me because I'm not running away, but I can stun guys and I can switch stances. Start thinking about what can you do to contribute to the 4-person group that no one else can do because you're playing a monk, in addition to the fact that your real skill comes without effort. So your brain, okay, you as a person, your brain, this is what's going to make you successful. See these other people playing and using different abilities. Know that if you need to go look them up for yourself, you can do that. But also at the same time, don't worry about it too much, right? So how do you draw a thumbs up? Is that a good thumbs up? There's a thumbs up right there. So that's what I suggest you do. Now let's take a look at it from a game master perspective, right? You're going to build your own world. You're going to play an adventure. You can't wait to go run an adventure for your friends. You're the mom and dad and the family. You want to run the game for your kids. The kids don't really want to dive in. They're 11 years old. They don't want to dive into it. So you really need the introduction section. You kind of need to know the class stuff pretty good. You can always look up the spells and the feats along the way, but you really want to master this last section of the book here. You're going to need to understand all the conditions. You're going to need to understand all the combat rules. You're going to need to understand all the templates. You're going to need to understand how to do DC. You're going to understand how to do skill checks. You don't need to know all the skills. You need to know how to run the game. So that latter part of the book is going to be your resource. So you need to study World War II, World War I. Pick one or the other. You're either a player, right, or you're a GM. Doesn't matter where you start. You can approach this book from 2 perspectives. Now, it's always okay to begin in the beginning and read towards the end, but you'll probably fall asleep halfway through the way because there's just so much dense information. So no matter what you do, that's my suggested approach to the core rule book. So, and then when you get all the way to the end, you're going to realize there's a glossary. There's going to be some online resources to look up. The other thing I would say to you that's going to be really beneficial is that I found helpful for me is this. Use the online resources and the community to help you get through questions when they aren't crystallizing in your head quickly. Here's an example. I didn't understand how the ray shield action took, how it was effective in combat, and how the shield block mechanic worked as a reaction. So I started thinking I understood it. I studied it. I made notes on it. Actually went as far as making a cool video to say, and here's how it works. This is really awesome. And there was a couple of details I got wrong. And the people in the community were cool enough to say, hey man, I think you're confusing this one thing. So I was able to take another video, make a follow-up video that explained that, wow, you don't have to always use a reaction. You can selectively choose when to do the reaction. So you're reading through the book, whether you're a player, you got this cool character design, or you read one that someone else is doing, you've mastered this chapter, you think you got a great handle on all the spells and the feats and the skills, and you're ready to build your incredible badass hero, whether you're a metagamer or whatever you are, right? You're going to build this cool dude that's got 2 swords, 1 in each hand. Those look like swords, those look like ballistas, right? And this is what you're going to do. You got your idea for your dual wielder dude, you're going to have fun playing him, and you start figuring all this kind of stuff out, and you're ready to go, but then you're like, wait a minute, how many feats did I get a feat from my ancestry that I already actually had during character creation? Can I pick another feat twice? Can I pick another skill 3 times? How do I raise my proficiency bonus to get up to master? When does that happen? So you're going to have all these like technical rule questions that aren't going to make a lot of sense. And you're going to be flipping, and you're going to look in the glossary and you're going to be like, I got all these pieces of information in my mind, but I still don't know how to balance an equation in chemistry. You may know the entire periodic table, you may have done experiments, you may have seen the chemicals in beakers, but if you don't know how to balance an equation, you're not going to make anything cool happen or blow up, right? Or you might make things blow up and then you'll be in trouble when that happens. So when you get to this point, go to your Facebook community. I would say go to Reddit, but you get a lot of narkiness in Reddit. But that's just my personal opinion because I ask dumb questions and people flame me, and I don't like that. But in the Facebook group that I'm a member of, it's really helpful. There's a number of people in there that are very smart. Say your specific question, and you might be surprised because a lot of people right now are also learning how to play the game, and they'll say, I'm pretty sure it's like this. It's on page 261, and then someone will say, that's true, but you could also do B, which is on page 303. So you just shortcutted a ton of knowledge by sharing with your community. If you try to learn the game by yourself and you think you're so smart to know everything, and you go down to your local role-playing game store, you start playing a game, and you got a kind of an ornery, stubborn GM who thinks he knows more than you, you're going to find yourself in kind of a confrontational argument clinic, because everyone's going to be in this like male ego, I know the rules better than you, complexity, Pathfinder 1 kind of a vibe. Avoid all that. Just learn your class really, really well if you're going to be a player. Make sure you understand the details of it. Know enough about GMing the game. And remember, at the end of the day, the GM kind of is law. And if he decides to not give you a DC number and make it too hard for you, there's probably a reason for it. Don't get into rules as written debates. Have fun. Learn about this class and learn about the tactical gameplay that's going to make it a lot more fun for you. Have we reached the 10,000 word a minute mark yet? So I want to wrap up the conversation with the core rulebook by going over some of the other books really, really quickly. And so far, as you can tell, you know, this is, like I said at the beginning, we had 5 major points, right? This is basically AD&D with a little bit of wargaming, and plus the third point is the evolution of what D&D has become in the last 40 years with a tremendous amount of player choice that's very, very challenging. So if you're going to talk about something challenging, pick any monster. Now, I can't hear you, but pick any monster and go to that page and go, okay, let's see what's up with that. Where's that giant? Remember that giant I was talking about the other day in one of my other videos? And you start reading what these guys can do, you'll be like, oh my God, I can't believe this. Okay, so everyone knows I did the Glacier Ruther Frost Giant Jarl, and this was something that was covered in one of my videos of Attack of Opportunity and Manipulate. So look at the giants and start reading some of the details in these guys. A hill giant, 140 hit points, okay? When I was running my steadying at a hill giant chief, I was giving all my hill giants like 8 hit dice, max hit points. I was giving them either 10 hit dice, whatever they were. I was maxing their hit points. I was maxing the hit points of my AD&D characters to make it epic characters fighting epic monsters. This hill giant would face roll that hill giant. So the numbers are different. These monsters do a lot more damage. They have a lot higher hit points. They have a lot more active abilities they can do, which are called actions. For example, just look at the hill giant himself, right? Melee attack, great club, plus 19, backswing, 10-foot reach. He could do shove as well. Oops, sorry about bumping the mic there. Damage 1d10 plus 14 bludgeoning. So if he rolls a 10, that's 24 damage. So with that being 24 damage, that's pretty nasty, huh? Now this is a level 7 creature. So let's say you happen to be playing Kira or Kyra or whatever her name is. We should rename her to Kelly or something, right? I just can't. Someone teach me how to pronounce this girl's name, and she has way too much clothes on. Not that she needs to be naked, but it's just be hot. I mean, what is she doing, riding a camel? So, you know, you got these hill giants here. If a level 5 cleric, and this person comes up and rolls a 10, and this hill giant wallops you, you're going to take a ton of damage. It's going to be half your hit points. You're going to have to be very smart about where you are. And if this guy swings at you 3 times in a row because it's a 3-action economy, if he hits you with all 3 swings, you're probably going to blow up and die. So raising that shield is going to make a liker at the end of your turn. Do 2 actions, cast a spell, heal someone, bless someone, do something that's going to help you move to a better position, make it harder for that hill giant to get to you so other people can attack of opportunity as he's going by, like your fighters and things like that. Make sure you stun like this guy, get some knockdowns, make sure that rogue is able to do is flanking. Be sure this dangerous DPS machine, right out of EverQuest 1, is going to not get in your face at all. So you need to kind of have Trinity thinking to a certain degree, unless you build your character, your cleric, to be a frontline fighter, which is actually possible for you. So with this, don't assume that your old baddies are the same old baddies from days gone by, okay? Because those days are freaking over. The Hall of the Fire Giant King would be a laughing stock compared to what the power is of the Fire Giants now. Fire Giants now have 175 hit points. It is not some D12 plus 2 garbage anymore. It is a number. It is a flat out, consistent, flat number with AC of 31. They have immunities to fire as we expect. They have a weakness to cold with 10, which means they get 10 additional damage. They can catch rocks. They have a great sword that's plus 24, magical, reach of 10 feet, versatile, which means they can slash or pierce with it. I mean, they have flaming stroke. Listen to this. I almost had a stroke when I read this. 2 actions. Now remember, in every turn, which is a melee round, which is only 6 seconds, let's just do a fictitious situation here. Who's some fool? Let's put our hapless Elephanisi here. No grid, right? It's his turn. You just want your turn. She's not doing anything. He can move up to his maximum movement rate for each action. So the Fire Giant's movement, where's the Fire Giant's movement in here, right? Large creature, Fire Giant, humanoid, perception, language of skills, items, hit points, attack of opportunity, weakness, will, speed. Okay, not movement. I'm using old words. So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, great. So he can move 25 feet in 1 action. Okay? So do, right in your face. Now he has 2 actions left over that he can use to attack you. So the first action, he can roll and hit you and say he does a bunch of damage there, which really sucks. And then he can do a third attack as well on the third action and do an attack and maybe do something even nastier, like do even more damage with a MAP, which is a multiple attack penalty. He may not hit you in the second attack, but if he does, you're going to get splattered. You're going to get blown up really, really quickly. Be sure you build yourself with the defenses you're going to need to survive this kind of stuff. Don't be out of position. It's even worse than that. In AD&D, this was pretty reasonable. People were using the 120-inch movement rate factor, things like that, over 1 minute melee round. Later on, it got compressed to a 6-second segment. We're still using the 6-second segment, but listen to this, right? This is the action economy. So what does that mean for this type of situation? Let's put our frost giant there. I don't have a grid out. I'm not going to put a grid out. Let's just draw a loose freehand grid here. I can do that really, really quickly. I used to be an architect. I can draw that shit. All right. That looks like a perfect 1-inch grid, doesn't it? All right, so what do you got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is 50 feet. Let's just say that's 50 feet, whether it's wrong or not. Maybe I missed one, right? Let's say that's 50 feet. 50 feet, 0 inches. He has 3 actions. First stride, 25 feet. Second stride, 25 feet. First attack, no multiple attack penalty. Wham, wallop, dead. That's a lot. That's almost the size of my board. If you wanted to be sure, I almost wonder if people are going to start doing hit and run tactics where I'm a monk, I have a high movement rate. This guy's attacking someone else on my team. I'm going to hit him once and I'm going to back away really far away. People are going to be moving all over the place in the game. I can't wait to actually play it because being bogged down in these tank and spank kind of low movement rate fights where not a lot of people are moving around and no one's really doing anything all that compelling and they're just beating on this block of hit points until it dies, being able to disengage, be able to move quickly and flank in your turn. I mean, in the old days, you'd be hard pressed to get that far before it was your turn. You wait another 4 minutes of crap going by, and then you get your chance to do your little baby move. With the 3-action economy, a lot of things can change very, very quickly before you realize what's going on in the game. And then the following turn, things could change even more quickly where people can regroup together and this guy can start fleeing and start pulling everyone down this way. So there's so much tactical stuff happening because of the high mobility. That's something you need to think about when you start to play the game. The mobility level in Pathfinder Second Edition is incredible. And if you are not good at figuring things out on your own, watch it in your first game session, you realize, can I move that far? Am I able to do that? So it's going to be very easy for you to get overwhelmed if you're not paying attention to what you're doing. So in the bestiary, not bestiary, you will find that the enemies are nastier, they're harder, they're tougher. Your power is going to grow, but you need to have some friends. It's all designed around a 4-person party, okay? So each person in your group, when you make your decisions about what to do, if you find yourself doing things like, I guess I'll just cast my heightened cantrip, you may find that you didn't think about positioning, you didn't think about where you were, you didn't think about the health number of your friends, and by the time the next 2 enemies come along on a hard or more difficult to counter, that 2 of these people are dead. And I think a lot of people who aren't tactical thinkers are going to struggle with that initially. Now, if you've got any experiences with that, please share with everyone. What I'm trying to reveal here is from reading through the book and checking things out and doing some local testing at my end with the damage numbers that I've seen and the characters I use, pre-generated characters for level 5s. I tried putting level 7, 8, 6, 5, and 4s against these guys individually. Like, can the 4 guys take out a level 4? Can the 4 guys take out a level 5? I did just already use these characters. I found the combat to provoke me to think about what to do tactically that's smart and is full of fear. And you know what? If you're not afraid, you're not having fun. It becomes boring when you're just mowing through stuff all the time. So we promised we would talk about the other things too. You already saw me talk about character sheets. Do you want to buy this or not? It's really up to you. The advantage of buying this is that these character sheets are per class. Like, here's one for the cleric, here's one for the druid. And I'm not a big fan of the brown and the blue, but hey, you can do this in black and white, right? So if you look at them, if you flip over to the back side, you see that a lot of the stuff that's kind of complicated, remember the whole phone book analogy I was making earlier, I'm ordering from the menu, the class feats and abilities are all spelled out for you. So as you level up, you can see what you're going to get. So you don't need to go flipping through the book or flipping on your phone. That's really, really useful. Here's a specific example, right? What is this? The cleric. This isn't even filled out. No character sheet filled out at all. Right? So you have these bonuses and spells. Here's the third doctrine, Cloistered. If you're playing Cloistered, you gain an expert spell attack rolls and spell DC. If you're playing War Priest, which is like a subclass, which is really interesting, which actually gets shield block if I'm not mistaken. Gain expert simple favored weapon and you're unarmed. Gain critical specialization with favored weapon using your spell DC. Imagine you're using a two-handed hammer as your favorite weapon, like a what was that class called I played in Warhammer Online? Oh, I forgot the name of it. It was a priest type class I played. It was so fun. So, you know, the character sheets are really, really cool. If you buy them, don't start writing on them. So if you do buy these bad boys, you don't need these. You really don't need these, but you can fill out your own character sheets and use the PDFs and print them and fill out yourself. You may want these if you're having a tough time digesting all the rules. You may find, there's the producer right there, they may find them to be a little troublesome for you. So we talked about the bestiary, we talked about the core rulebook, we talked about the spirit of the game, we talked about our 5 points, remember them, AD&D meets wargaming, an evolution of D&D over the last 40 years with tremendous amounts of player choice, and it's very challenging. Those are the 5 things I want you to remember. I'll probably put it in the damn description, right? So there's a couple of the book things we want to talk about here, and one of them is this Game Master guide, Game Master screen. So where's our top secret administrator screen? Now you saw me pull this out earlier, right? This like clunky TSR. This is what I grew up with, right? It's even got like coffee stains on it or chocolate milk. I don't know what it is. So when you get the GM screen, which is very useful, and it's very beautiful, the artwork as always, some of their contract artists are fantastic. It is much more, it's not as tall. So in the old days, you had these good Dungeon Master screens are like this 8.5 by 11, and you're setting up shop and you're all back here rolling your dice and being scary and everything. But it wasn't really big, and you kind of only had like that much room to work with. Well, this thing here is not as tall. So you can tell right away it's not as tall. So it's not about being hidden behind a screen anymore, reading double-spaced content, or reading the contact reaction table for spies and rolling a D100 and realizing with this bonus you got a result of D, and then having to look up what D is, which contact will listen to the agent 50% of the time on a 0, 1 to 50 percentile dice will try to answer anything the agent asks. That's a very lot of space for one basic rule for doing NPC interactions. What you're going to find with this is that the screen folds out in this kind of weird, peculiar way, but it's very glossy, it's very big, it's very huge, it takes up a lot of room, but it has a lot of interesting, useful information on the inside of it that's related to running the game. For example, in fact, it's almost hard to hold it up the way I can't fold it right. This whole pane here, so you have it set up in shop, in fact, we'll just draw a little DM screen here, right? So I believe it's a 4-panel screen altogether, or is it more? 1, 2, 3, 4 panels, right? 4-panel screen, you can set up however you want to. It's half of an 8-sided octagon. This side here is all conditions. So this whole page here, I'm not going to write on with the whatever that is all the conditions, which will be hard to remember because these are brand new. Now, if you played Guild Wars 2, you know what all the conditions are, but these are all things like broken and clumsy and confused and dazed and deafened and confused and Led Zeppelin and everything else that can happen to you. So you need to remember these, and you don't want to go flipping through the core rulebook all the way to the back, which is where it actually exists in the core rulebook. Let me just show you what that looks like real quick here, right? Say you're playing a game, you're like, okay, well, the monster hit you and you've been grabbed. You're like, oh gosh, all these other games I played, it had grabbed in it, and I don't remember what grabbed is. Let me pick the big heavy book up and flip all the way back to the very back of the book and flip through it alphabetically and find what grabbed is. Here it is right here, right? You're immobilized and flat-footed. If you attempt a manipulate action, it means like casting a spell or opening a lock or manipulating something in your hand like a potion. You must succeed a DC 5 flat check or it is lost because someone's grabbing you. And it's almost like grappling in an MMA fight. Or you're flat-footed. -2 circumstance penalty to AC. No matter what happens in the game, no matter what's going on, if you're flat-footed, -2 to AC. Not a lot, doesn't sound like a big number, but it makes a big difference. But grabbed is different than restrained. You're tired. Yeah, you're tired. I'm tired. You're tied up and can barely move, or a creature has you pinned. You're immobilized and flat-footed, and you can't use any actions to attack with the attack or manipulate trait, except to attempt to escape or force open your bonds. Restrained overrides grabbed. So you're all tied up. Your hands are all tied. You're not going to be able to cast a spell and say the magic word. You know, it's just like being held hostage. So the conditions are here. This second pane here is about keeping track of the turns, what the basic actions are. It shows you the actions: crawl, delay, drop prone, escape. This is really useful. I'm glad they designed this way. When someone's death and dying, which is going to happen frequently, that's all right here in the middle of the second panel. It talks about recovery checks, being wounded and doomed. If you get knocked unconscious, how to treat wounds, and you're going to do an expert level of treating wounds. It's a DC of 20. What will you get for that? 2d8 plus 10. If you do a critical on it, it's 4d8 plus 10. Now what is that? What's 48? Maximum number, 32 plus 10, 42, right? Remember our level 5 magic user? What was his max health, right? What was it, like 53 or something? 53. So if you did a critical on treat wounds and you had expert level of proficiency, this is going to give you almost enough to completely heal this guy. Now that stuff takes time, out of combat and all that kind of stuff. So the specific rules on treat wounds, I could be a little wrong with that, but hey, we'll learn that soon enough. But on the GM screen, that's there. Terrain is up here, so you can get an idea like, hey, this is where cover works, how the hero points work. Don't forget to give everyone a hero point, which is a get out of jail free Monopoly card, how the different terrain works. It even tells you what core page in the rule book it's on. So if someone's like, well, I don't understand, if I'm behind a rock that's partially shattered and on fire and smoldering and has snot all over it, is it still giving me lesser cover, or is it just cover or greater cover? And you're like, okay, rock half crumbled and covered with snot and flaming. You're going to need to flip to 477 to get the verbose details. So the page numbers are right there for you. Really, really useful. And then you have skill actions. So all the different skills that are in the game, medicine, nature, occultism, performance, religion, all that's right here, and it has a little action icon. Hey, listen, you're going to do a high jump. That's a 2 action. A long jump, 2 actions. A shove or swimming or tripping, 1 action. Grapple, 1 action. Tumble through something, 1 action. Squeeze. You know, they're broken. Disable a device, 2 actions, right? In a 6-second period of time, you can disable a device and run 25 feet. Remember that. It's not like, oh, I can only disable the device and that's it. That's the end of my turn. And you playing AD&D, you know what it's like to pick a lock. You're like, this stuff is very fast. You're going to be able to run up to the door, undo the door, unpick the lock, open the door, and go through the door really quickly. In fact, open the door might cost you the action, but the door was already open or whatever. But if you, well, why would it be locked if it's unlocked? So you'd be able to do things very quickly. I can unlock the lock and then run away. You know, so in your one turn, you're going to get to do all kinds of cool stuff. They have good examples of simple DCs, which is a great place to start, because if you try to flip through the book and you finally come across this tiny little table on page 503, right? You're going to say to yourself, okay, I'm never going to remember what page number this is on, right? This tiny little table 10-4, simple DCs, not Daniel Cormier, who I can't stand. I hope Stevie Miocic knocks him out this time. So, you know, that's right here inside your GM screen. DCs by level. So as you get higher and higher level, the spell levels, DC adjustments, like it's easy, it's very easy, it's hard. This is where you get to use your kind of AD&D type of sensibilities as a dungeon master / game master. There's specific DCs, creature identification, like celestials, constructs, dragons, you know, what skills they have. Detecting creatures, things are invisible, hidden, undetected. Just read the GM screen is like the best spark notes for for War and Peace you've ever seen in your whole life. So you've got War and Peace by Jason Blumman and the other 3 designers, and then you got the spark notes here, and it's all stuff you can really, really use in the game. You got to have this. You can make your own, but it's not worth it. Just buy it, dude. It's totally, totally worth it. Fantastic. I really love it. It's great. I know I sound like a fanboy, but I'll tell you what, I am probably one of the pickiest dudes you'll ever met in your life. I am a hateful bastard when it comes to stuff that completely sucks, and I'll let everyone know it. So when you're playing a game, like you might see Jason on the Knights of Everflame, he's got this beautiful spread, I can't even get it on my camera, it's so big. Beautiful piece of artwork. It just starts way over here, and one continuous piece to the middle here with all the characters going down this hill in the cave, being attacked by this dragon. I don't know what the devil that is. That's nasty. And there's the bar on the top, jerking around playing songs from the wood. What is this guy doing? He's not helping. He's not doing anything helpful. I mean, come on. The cleric's like, listen, you're going to die. Sorcerer's saying, I'm going to blow you up. Cleric's like, don't worry, I'll heal you, you stupid fighter. And he's up in the front getting destroyed. And the rogue's trying to get this thing as an attack. Everyone else is being tactical. What is Whistlestink doing up here playing songs of the wood? Gosh, Jethro Tull. Can't believe it. Richie Blackmore every day. So really, really cool. You'll go back and look at this, and you just be out looking at Diablo 1 again. You'll be like, I don't know, man. It doesn't really hold up anymore. So really well done. Hats off to that. Got to have it purchased. Got to have it. Character sheets, you don't need it. If you're on the budget, you know, you don't need it. Remember, you can get the core rule book The core rulebook is a PDF. You can get the bestiary, not bestiary. Bestiary is a PDF. That's $30. You can get the GM screen if you're ever going to GM if you don't need to buy it. So for $30, you can get in the game and start having all this cool fun right away. All right, what else we got to go over? I think that's pretty much everything. All right, quick summary. Let's write them down for you, and then we'll shut up because I know these videos get long, but it's really worth. And we're over an hour now. My God, I don't run ads either, so don't worry about that. So there's 5 major points to remember why I think you should check out Pathfinder. If you're an old school guy like me, and if you're a young school guy, you should already be playing anyway. You have no excuses. So first thing is this AD&D, right? It's a little bit of wargaming without all the Bernard Montgomery Operation Market Garden type crap going on. That's the one thing about wargamers that will drive you batty. They know so much about world history, especially the World War II guys. They will spend more time joking around and talking about that as they're veterans of foreign war type conversations, that there's not a lot of killing going on. But I tell you what, wargamers, they know so much. They're so good. If you get wargamers to come play at your Pathfinder Second Edition game, you may be like, holy crap, this guy figured out how to do that. I had no idea that you could do that. That's why I want to see wargamers play this game. Player choice. Amazing amounts of player choice. Almost too much. Almost too much player choice. Hard to digest in 2 weeks. It's a good problem to have. That's a friend of mine, Gavin Wishaw, once said. And number 5, finally, after all these years, it's challenging. Built on the synergy of 4 friends at the table. They're not always bald. It's just the way I draw my chicken scratch people. Guys and girls alike, whoever you are, wherever you come from, playing together, sticking together, defeating the hugest, most nastiest things you could possibly find. Thumbs up all the way. I give this game straight 18s. Hope you enjoyed my review, and we'll talk to you later.